Hi, welcome to another edition of Inside Livingston. I'm Mayor Michael Vieira, and today we're going to be talking about Livingston's drinking water and PFAS and what the town is doing to work with our water system. Today we have our town manager, Barry Lewis, and we have our utility engineer, Nathan Kirikoff. Before we begin, Nathan, what does the town utility engineer do?
So my function is I run the day-to-day operations of the water department here in town. So we have 160 miles of pipe, about 1,300 fire hydrants, 11 different well facilities, 7 different tanks, and a couple of booster stations, and some other areas where we buy water from other utilities. We maintain all of that. We run that day-to-day operations. And I'm actually the licensed water operator holder for the town. So, all water operators need to have licenses in order to run a water system. So I'm the guy that leads that whole department, and we replace water meters, all sorts of stuff, and that's our day-to-day operations here in the water department.
So we're in one of our watersheds right now, and this edition is talking about Livingston's drinking water. And we all know, based on all the letters that we receive every quarter, Livingston's wells, some of them have something called PFAS.
Yes.
In it. Can you just explain what PFAS is?
So PFAS is actually a group of compounds. It's called per and polyfluoroalkylated compounds, substances rather. So that's what those letters PFAS stand for. I believe it's over 3,000 of them that are out there. They're used in a lot of different manufacturing processes. The key one that a lot of people are familiar with is Teflon, which is in like the nonstick pans and stuff like that, and certain kinds of clothing and those elements. So used in that process, there's one in particular that's called PFOA. PFOA is actually the compound that has been found in some of the wells that's in exceedance.
Mm-hmm. So Barry, as a town manager, you must talk to other town managers. This is not new to Livingston only. There's many municipalities that.
That's correct. It's been found in water systems all over the country, quite frankly, and so there are a ton of. There's a significant number of New Jersey municipalities, but all throughout all the 50 states. They're dealing with the presence of PFAS in their water system.
So did our water change overnight like that, or can you explain what happened?
And I certainly would welcome Nathan's input as well, but no, I mean, our water, there wasn't a sudden spill that all of a sudden caused all this PFAS. The PFAS has probably been in there for quite a while. PFAS chemicals and the use in the manufacturing process goes back, I think, to the 40s and 50s.
Yes.
So it's been around for a long, long time. So the water's been the same. What's really changed is the regulatory thresholds and the knowledge and the research as to what the impacts of PFAS are. I don't know.
That's correct. So just to jump off of that point, New Jersey is actually one of the first states to have begun regulating for PFAS substances.
Wasn't it California too?
New Jersey wasn't the very first, but California was among.
I heard that New Jersey wants to try and beat California. That's why we're in this.
Get stricter.
Yeah.
Typically, California does lead the charge on things like this, but in this particular case, there's no federal regulatory limit yet established. The EPA is discussing one, but New Jersey is ahead of the game in that front. They established regulatory limits for 3 of the PFAS compounds: PFOA, PFOS, and PFNA.
So what was the? I guess this probably started with the council about 3 years ago. I guess the number came down. What was that number then? Where, like, parts per trillion?
So the limit is in parts per trillion, which is a very unusual. Previously, the lowest types of limits you heard were parts per billion. So that means this is 1,000 times lower than almost any other regulatory standard that's on the books. So we're talking about very, very small quantities of these materials in the water. The number for PFOA was established at 14 parts per trillion.
What was it before that?
So before that, previously, there was no number at all. There was there was a health advisory limit that was proposed by the EPA, which was 70 parts per trillion. But that's just a guideline.
So the guideline was 70, and then
Yes.
all of a sudden the DEP dropped it down to 14.
Correct.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so there had been no state regulation of it. The federal wasn't even a regulation, as Nathan indicated. There was, as some of the research began to raise concerns about potential health risks, I think the EPA produced a guideline, which again was 70 parts per trillion, at which point we were aware of it, but monitoring, and we were in the teens and the 20s, so we were nowhere close to 70. And it wasn't until 2019, 2020 that the state started talking about
Correct.
significantly actually making it a regulation, and then also significantly lower than the 70, which is kind of set off alarm bells for us because we knew we had some present.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's where we began the process of getting the design ready and everything. And then as the new regulatory limit went into effect, some of those wells that were on that, just above that limit, went into violation at that point.
So, and I understand that the federal DEP is even talking lower than what New Jersey has at this point.
Correct. They're talking about a number that's
Not
it's
detected.
moved around, but it's the number they've talked about is 4.
So Livingston's relying on you pretty much to help fix our well issue. So could you tell the Livingston residents what we're doing? Because, Barry, we jumped on this as soon as we found out.
Absolutely.
We didn't wait. I know there's some towns that aren't even doing anything. We jumped on this right away.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a huge credit to Nathan, to Jeanette Harteby, our engineering department, our outside consultants that we hired, Mont McDonald, got ahead of this. To Nathan's credit, he stays very involved in all the water issues. He heard the chatter coming from DEP that they're looking at regulating this. He knew they were going to regulate pretty much the number they were going to use a couple of years before it went into effect. So we got ahead of it. Retained Mont McDonald. Nathan's been working very closely with them. So we were already designing and planning and doing the necessary testing to evaluate the appropriate treatment facilities well before the regulations even went into effect.
Correct.
So Nathan, what's the plan?
So the plan is there's 4 different sites that are in violation right now that we've established a phase A. There's another site that is in violation that we had turned off. We're not using that one right now, so it's a lower priority well. It's a little bit smaller. That's eventually going to be in a phase B that we're going to actually hopefully go out to bid later this year. But phase A, the design was completed. It went out to bid. A contractor's been awarded. That contractor's actually getting ready to mobilize on the site in the next couple of weeks. I think we're working through some.
So every well that we have in town
Yes.
that's failed or is not meeting regulations has to have a specially designed system.
Correct. And that system is, we're actually using, so there's granulated activated carbon is one you hear a lot about, GAC, that's kind of similar to what's in like a Brita filter or something like that. And then there's also ion exchange resin. So or ion exchange media rather. Ion exchange media is what we've actually selected at this first round of wells. It's just for various logistical reasons of the way these wells work with some of the pre-existing treatment. Ion exchange media is the preferred medium of choice, and that essentially goes into a large steel canister, and that canister is the water's pumped through that media, not too dissimilar to how a refrigerator filter or Brita type filter would work, and then that removes the PFAS, and that media lasts for some amount of time and eventually get exhausted and have to be replaced, at
Change
regular
the
intervals.
filter, yeah, like you would.
But this is kind of brand new, right?
It's an emerging field. This is one of the approved treatments, but there's not a lot of options that exist for PFAS treatment right now, but we have to become in compliance, so we're utilizing one of the established and known technologies for treating
But
this.
literally, every single well that is not up to standard has to have this system built.
Correct.
Yeah, A system, one of the two, GAC or ion. One of the things, though, you touched on, Mayor, that I think it's important for the public to understand is not all of our wells are affected.
Yes.
We have a total of how many wells, Nathan?
We have 11 different well facilities and 14 wells in
Right,
total.
and how many are impacted?
Right now, there's 5 that are impacted.
So we have 5, and
Five
then
out of-
we shut one off?
One is shut
Yeah,
off.
the first one, which had the highest level of contaminants and fortunately was a relatively small producing well, has been shut off
And
since we determined it because we were able to meet the needs of the public
Yes.
without that water. As far as the others, we've obviously made an effort to maximize the use of the non-contaminated water and purchased water, but in order to meet the needs of the community, we still have to rely somewhat on the contaminated wells. But
Barry,
it's all blended into
That's what I was
one-
going to say. It's
yeah,
called
not-
blending.
Yes.
Can you
Yes.
explain what blending is?
So the Livingston water system's all interconnected. There's not any single source that's feeding our system. So we buy water from other utilities. We have all these wells throughout the system, so everything goes into the system together, and preferentially, it's being mixed internal to the system.
So while it's mixing, the PFAS numbers are getting, I guess, lowering.
Yeah, certainly there's dilution when you blend. It's not to say that it all goes into one big blended tank and then all comes out equal everywhere. So depending on the location, proximity to a contaminated well versus a different well and water pressures. But the point is, virtually nobody's getting pure water straight only from one well with that amount of PFAS.
Correct.
There's some other water mixing in with it. So it's impossible to really pinpoint everybody's level at their house because of that blending. But what it does mean is that any water anyone's getting is no higher than the highest well, and certainly in most cases significantly lower.
Right.
And Barry, we do have other contracts with, I believe, the East Orange Water Commission. If we need water,
We buy a significant amount already from Jersey American.
Yes.
And
East Orange
East
is
Orange
a water
water
commission.
system.
and there's no issues with that comes into town.
Theirs
It's-
are, knock on wood, don't have PFAS.
They're not in violation at this time.
Yeah, they're below the threshold, so.
Okay. So let's just walk me through one more time. So did the whole design has to be built by a contractor?
Correct.
And then after it's built, what do you have to do to maintain it? Is there chemicals that have to be?
So it's that media is goes inside those large steel vessels. It will eventually, we will regularly test the water, and there's set intervals at which that media will its lifetime will expire and be exhausted, and it will have to be replaced. That's a little bit of we have estimated timelines where we think that will have to occur, but it depends on the field conditions and everything when the actual routine intervals are as we put the new treatment into place.
Very similar to what you do with the water sheds here. Like you do have to put chlorine in.
So chlorine we do add chlorine, but that's a little bit, so that's like a daily thing that we have to add if the facility's running where we add chlorine every single day. This media will last for many months. Again, it depends on the levels and the amount of flow and how often the well is run, so it's a little hard to say exactly, is it a year versus 2 years, but it's going to be a period of regular intervals that it has to be replaced after it's exhausted. So it's not like it's running, we don't always run the facility 24/7, like it's 365 days a year because there's summer and winter demands and things like that. So wells, they have to be turned off for different maintenance purposes at times too. So that's why it's a little bit, it does need to be replaced, but the exact time frame is hard to say.
So Barry, I'm turning to you now because everything that Nathan is talking about is costing millions of dollars.
Tens of millions of dollars.
Tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, it's obviously presents a significant challenge not only for us, but for all the municipalities that are facing this. What we have done on two fronts is one, obviously try and minimize the cost in a number of ways. One, by consolidating projects, so when they go out to bid, you get economies of scale. We're doing a big shout out to our CFO, Ian Cucci, and our special counsel at McManaman, Scotland and Bauman. We're working through what's called the New Jersey Infrastructure Bank, which is a financing tool of the state that receives funding from not only the state, but also from the federal government that allows them to offer very favorable financing. Below market interest rates, some interest-free portions
Some
of loans,
forgivable, too.
and some forgiveness. So ideally, that'll not only control the interest costs, but also reduce some of the overall principal. So that's on the one front. On the other front, the mayor and council, a little over a year ago, I think, did have the foresight to authorize us to join a class action.
Yes.
As I mentioned earlier, there are municipalities and public entities all over the country that are facing this. So there are some very complex class action lawsuits that are pending against a lot of the bigger manufacturers, 3M, a lot of huge
DuPont.
corporations, DuPont, to recoup some of the costs for these, and we are participating in that and hope to, eventually get some portion of some settlement out of that.
And a lot of these bigger companies are starting to settle.
Yeah, there's a settlement
I
proposed.
think there's a pending settlement for both 3M and
DuPont.
DuPont.
I think we saw that, so we're
Yeah.
very happy because that's
Any
part of
money
our
we
class
get to help
action.
offset it, sure.
Yeah.
And it's important because whatever we can't get from somewhere else, has to be borne by the water utility, which is a self-liquidating utility. That means it funds itself based on the water rates we charge. So it's, in light of the amount of the expense, it's certainly inevitable that in the future we're going to have to see rate increases to do this, but we're trying to minimize that and spread it out and get what other sources we can to reduce the cost.
And I think the key thing is that with Nathan and you and the council, we jumped on this very fast.
It is. We are definitely ahead, and Nathan is more in this world than I am, but I would certainly say we're in the lead group of people, even with iBank and some of these others. They've said, yeah, you're the first ones in.
Correct. They've indicated, and we've been eligible for some principal forgiveness and things as being some of the first in line, as it were. So we've been able to take advantage of that.
And I know that we've also asked for some congressional dollars too, hopefully. We haven't seen anything yet, but...
we will continue to pursue any funding that's available, federal stimulus funds, Build Back Better funds. We're monitoring everything that's available, and we'll certainly aggressively apply for any funding we can get, because it's not, certainly isn't the town's fault, it's not the residents' fault, so anything we can do to limit the cost is important.
Yeah. So Nathan, what's the time frame?
So
do we think?
This particular contract, like I said, it was awarded earlier this summer, and the contractor's getting ready to mobilize in the next few weeks
So
here.
the summer of 23? This summer?
Yes, the summer
Okay.
of 23. It's a 2-year contract, so the estimated time frame is. This is the worst. Adding a lot of extra time just for unforeseen
Is
conditions.
that just for one unit?
This is for the whole project, for
this-
all full facilities.
Okay.
Ends the 2-year contract, so it would end in 2025 to have everything.
But it'll take
completed.
care of all of our wells that are affected at
The
this
ones
point.
that are all currently in violation, except for that one facility that is offline.
Okay.
That one is a separate contract that we're working on, and it's going out to bid.
Is that a major one?
That's
that's
the one.
a-
That's
yeah.
the one that's a little bit smaller producing
Yeah.
that
Okay.
we've taken offline.
And it will stay offline until it gets fixed, so it's not a question of.
So there's no
there's
blending?
there's not as much time urgency, let's put it that way, because we're
Right.
not using the water now, and
So-
won't use it until it's fixed,
So the state sort of considers that one. I mean, it's in violation, but it's
because it's
kind of
shut
also
down.
not, because it's a shutdown. I mean, but we can't turn it back on since we voluntarily shut it off
Yeah.
until it's fully.
So unfortunately, I know every quarter, and I'm not sure who I'm looking at. I think it's Nathan. Every quarter, our residents get this letter about the PFAS, and it's a scary letter, and we didn't write the letter.
Correct.
Okay, it's basically a generated letter from the state that has to go out every single quarter.
Yeah, to some degree, we wrote the letter, but the letter has to have certain things that the state requires. The state requires that it go to every customer every quarter. All the scary part, we were able to sort of supplement it to try and, make it more understandable to the layperson, less technical, less threatening, but the underlying facts had to be stated and have to be sent out every quarter until we get it done.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's actually a mixture of the federal legal guidelines and the New Jersey legal guidelines that mandate for situations where there's levels that are over a standard, you have to communicate to your residents that issue in the form and that manner. And there's
Well, it's that one letter that I'm happy that the mayor's signature is not on. I think it's yours,
My
Barry.
signature's on it.
So, before we close, is there anything else that you think we need to add to let our residents know about the PFAS and our drinking water?
just that we're working day and night here, if there's ever a water main break, anything like that, we're here. It's a 24/7 operation, and we're out there, as the sort of the first responders for the water system, and making sure that, we're committed to all of the residents to ensure reliable delivery.
And Barry, why don't you just also give a shout out to our water department?
Oh, yeah,
All
the
employees
water
that-
department as a whole, the whole team that works under Nathan, they do a great job in terms of managing the pumps, the treatment facilities, the wells, the delivery system. They're the guys that are out in the middle of the night when there's a main break and they're digging up the street and freezing. So definitely a big shout out to them. As far as the public and specifically the PFAS, I think there's a couple of points I would emphasize. One, again, it's a blended system, so there is some non-contaminated water mixed in. Two, and I encourage everyone on our website, if you go to the page under Water Department, there's a whole separate page dedicated to PFAS. There's links to a lot of information from the state, from the federal government, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but I encourage people to read that, research, get up to speed. What you will see is the health risks and exposures are largely based on a lifetime of exposure. This isn't a toxin you're going to get poisoned and die tomorrow. This is something, if you drink, a liter a day for 70 years, you have a somehow higher risk. So I don't want to be minimizing it, but certainly not alarmist that this is an immediate, if you drink it, you're going to die tomorrow or something. So, but do take it seriously. We get a lot of calls about filters. We're not experts on filters. We can't recommend a particular filter. Certainly would encourage people to do their research and make sure if they're buying a filter that it's actually filtering out what they want to filter out. Would also emphasize this is most of the risks in the studies are based on ingestion or drinking of the water. So doing your laundry or showering and bathing and washing your hands is not impacted by it. So if obviously one alternative is to purchase bottled water for what you're actually going to drink. But other than that, I just, I can't say enough about Nathan and how, what an asset he's been to the town, how professional, Jeanette Hardaby, the engineering department, Dan Cucci, our CFO, our special iBank team, the town and the mayor and council have been 100% supportive of getting ahead of this. It's a credit to the entire team that we are as far along as we are. There are numbers of towns that haven't even designed a plan, much less gone out to bid and
we are very
on the
lucky.
eve of construction.
So and this is a team effort to get
Absolutely.
over this. But before we leave, and I can't end the show without taking a little tour of this. This is a watershed. Well,
Yes.
house. So there's two rooms. What are we looking at right now?
This here is a pump that pumps the groundwater from below the ground. Pump is several hundred feet below ground, so it brings the water up. It's not running right now, because if it was running, we wouldn't even be able to record this.
Okay.
But it brings the water up. There's a number of valves and control elements here to help ensure as the pump turns on, it's all operating correctly. And then what's also used for maintenance and isolation. It actually goes down in this chamber. There's a flow meter in the chamber that lets us know how the gallons per minute, the actual flow that's coming out of the well, and we can control and adjust that with some of those control elements over there on the wall.
So everything is that's a control center right there, almost for this.
So those two devices here, these are called variable frequency drives. They actually allow the motor to sort of run more like how your car runs, where you press the gas, it goes faster. You let off the gas, it goes slower. Because traditionally a pump would just turn on hard pump start.
Okay.
These devices have become more and more popular in the past 20 or 30 years to help modulate and control those flows. And this here is the SCADA control panel that allows us to turn everything on and off, and actually communicates remotely to our control stations that we have at other parts of town, that we don't necessarily need to be here at the well house to know exactly what's happening at the well when it's running.
Okay.
So this is called a SCADA panel, and it controls everything with that.
And then
the water actually pumps through these devices over here. They're called diffused air bubblers, and this is actually to remove a different kind of compound, VOCs, that are in the water, volatile organic compounds. A couple of different well facilities we have that, and so this bubbler unit removes those VOCs. And once it's all treated, that water then enters into the clear well here. That's an underground chamber that stores the water. The water's chlorinated there with the chlorinators, and then pumped out into the system via this additional pump.
I don't think our residents realize the extent and what it takes to open the faucet and get a glass of water and drink it. How much effort and machinery goes into getting that glass of water.
And this is just one of 11 different well facilities we have.
And almost all of them are like this, pretty much.
I mean, there's variations of them depending on what level of additional treatment, but they're extensive. It's not so simple to be monitoring all these different well facilities.
Wow.
And then that's in addition to all the water that we also purchase from the other utilities as well. So it's a big system.
Amazing. So this is Mayor Michael Vieira. I hope that this show had given you a little bit of information on Livingston's drinking water. I want to thank our town manager, Barry Lewis. Definitely want to thank Nathan. he's definitely the man who's going to make sure that the PFAS gets controlled in Livingston. And just on behalf of the entire council and everyone, I know everyone, you know, we respect you greatly.
Thank you.
You come in and we learn a whole lot when you come into our council meetings and let us know. So thank you very much. And I hope our viewers learned a little bit about our drinking water and what the town is doing to rectify the situation. Again, as Barry and Nathan and I had said, it's not a Livingston issue. There's many municipalities going through this PFAS issue. So thank you very much and hope you had a very informative conversation with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So you thought you got rid of me, huh? So as we were walking out of the well house, Nathan had said, you know what, let's show the outside of the building and where the PFAS, what we're gonna call it? Treatment plant is going to be. So you know what, I'm back. So Nathan, this is the well house, the outside of the well house.
Yeah, this is the exterior of the well house. So the only available space we have on this site is right here. So we're going to be extending the building because these vessels are quite large and they need to be indoors. That's part of the reason this is such a complicated process, is to add that, because if they're outdoors, there's a risk of them freezing during the winter or having cold weather impacts.
So where it is, it's going to be almost enclosed in a house with heat.
Correct. So, and we have to adjust the roof line of the building, adjust all these windows here, extend the whole building, and it's going to be a continuous structure. And actually, you can't see it, but underground here is the primary electrical feed for the building, so that has to also be relocated.
So you're relocating that, and it's
Yeah.
very similar to all the other ones that
Yeah,
you're going to
there's
be doing. Very
there's
similar.
all these different. Each well has its own little unique nuances, but basically it's the same type of setup. And so we're going to have these large steel vessels here inside the building, and they're quite tall too, which is that the new building's going to be taller than this building even. And it's all got to be contained, and it's just a process to build the building and then do this same process several more times at other facilities
So
as well.
is the well shut down when the construction is going on?
No, the plan is to try to keep it operational during the peak demand periods.
Okay.
But there'll be certain times where the well will have to be impacted or shut down, depending on the stage of construction. But just to build the building, it won't have to be shut down.
Okay. So this whole project is basically expanding all of the well houses and making it the
Yes.
footprint a little bit bigger.
Sometimes a lot bigger, but yes.
Good. So, again, thank you. I want to thank Nathan. I think I'm leaving for good now, but I hope everybody enjoyed the show and learned a little bit of information. As the leaves are, as you can tell, it's fall and the leaves are falling, but hopefully our residents know a little bit more about PFAS and what the town is doing to rectify it. Again, thanks, Nathan, and
Yep.
thank you, Barry.
Thank you.